S Word, featuring Will Gavin and Master Tess Fassian. And a squad of big-name contributors. The S Word from talkSPORT.
I don't think the mics are turned on yet, but I just massively turned around, spun to the camera all excited, and kicked my water bottle off to start the show. What a way to kick things off. Welcome to the S Word from talkSPORT YouTube channel, and the S Word YouTube channel. I'm Will Gavin, Master Tess Fatsian alongside me, and there's another English champion in Europe. Big show, buddy. Big show today.
Oh, surprise, surprise. Another English team wins the Conference League.
Wow. And for the third time in 5 years, the Conference League is returning to London. What a night for the Eagles fans out in Leipzig. Of course, we will reflect on that. It's part of a gargantuan show. Anthony Gordon's on his way to the Camp Nou as we speak to go and have a medical and sign what we expect to be a 5-year deal with Barcelona. How are they doing this, Master?
Apparently they got money.
Where does it come from?
I said all week they didn't have money, but they got money. They got money now, apparently.
Absolutely wild. We'll continue our season deep dives. We'll talk Liverpool with the former Reds legend Steve Nicol. With Mo Salah leaving the club, we're also going to talk about where he ranks in the Premier League's top 10 all-time African players. Do a little bit of a draft. A bit of fun for a Thursday. A little bit of a pick-me-up for us. Plus, Christina Unkel's on. What a show. What a show, Master.
Big show. A lot to get into. Let's get right into it.
Beautiful. 2 hours coming up right here on the S Word.
Is that bottle of water?
No, it's down. It's very much down and out. Luckily enough, it was still closed, so I don't think they even heard the doink on air. But
I don't think so it doesn't count.
I was all so hyped. So I was like, yeah, big show. We're going to get going. This is going to be a great one. And then dong.
More doinks than NFL kicker.
Listen. 13 years to the day that they were promoted from the Championship via the playoffs. A year on from lifting the first trophy in club history, Crystal Palace have only gone and done it again, this time in Europe.
Welcome to the Conference League final, a debut season against the fairy tale. Wharton picks the ball up, runs down the left side of the centre circle, then strikes from distance, parried into the path of JP Mateta, who scores the opening goal of the Conference League final.
Bedlam here, 1-0, here we go.
Over the wall, into the near corner, hits both posts, and then it hits the third post from Mateta on the follow-up. How on earth has that not gone in?
In all my days as a football manager, and I'm talking about training as well, I've never seen that.
He's poked it to Mateta, who's hit the outside of the post after the goalkeeper makes a little save.
Well, Mateta should score.
And there is the full-time whistle. And the men from the Palace are crowned kings of Europe. Oliver's Army conquer Leipzig. They win the Conference League of 2026. Crystal Palace 1, Rayo Vallecano 0. Dean Henderson walks in front of his congested teammates. He lifts the trophy into the sky. The captain of Crystal Palace, Dean Henderson. It's history made in Leipzig, and Crystal Palace head into next season as one of 9 English clubs in Europe, and they will finally play in the Europa League.
And I'm feeling glad all over, yes I'm glad all over.
One of the great songs in the Premier League, in Europe, anywhere beyond, as far as club songs go. That feels like a perfect post-World Cup chat for us to have. But Will Gavin, Master Tess Fatsian, Alex has immediately got in touch with us on the YouTube chat, and he's just said, what is the S Word? And it's a great question, Alex, because I did not explain it to you. The S Word, brand new show from talkSPORT, which is running 5 days a week up to and including through the World Cup, where we'll be on every single day. We're a podcast, we're a YouTube show, and we are designed to bridge that gap between the North American soccer fan and the English football fan. Hence, the beautiful Yank sat next to me.
It's just who we are, mate.
It's what's more beautiful, me or this beautiful kit I have on?
Oh my God, that Japan kit is top 5 at the World Cup this year.
It's up
3,
there.
number 1 even maybe.
I got an early peek in the fall for it, and I maybe slept on it a bit much. I didn't rate it as high as I probably should have. It's gorgeous.
Didn't fancy wearing your Palace blue and red today though?
No, I didn't. Or my Rayo shirt.
What an absolutely sensational night for the Eagles fans out in Leipzig. That was how you heard it live on talkSPORT. And look, I mentioned it at the top, but this is a club who had, going back from their glory days in the 90s, reaching FA Cup finals, Steve Nicol, Alan Pardew, those great days for them. And, you know, their relegation, their yo-yoing between the leagues, getting promoted via the playoffs 13 years ago, and now, as a truly established Premier League club, they've added a European trophy to the FA Cup 3 times in 5 years. The Conference League has come back to London. Before we talk about the impact of all of that, let's give them their flowers. They were the better team last night, and Oliver Glasner led them to European glory.
They were. They dominated this match from, the first 30 minutes. It felt like it was a sparring session, but ending the first half and coming out of the second half, it was very clear Crystal Palace took it to another level. Despite the fact that they were without Chris Richards, they still found a way. They obviously have more talents than Rayo, and the only shock was probably that it was only 1-0. This felt like a final that should have been 3-4-0. The way Palace performed, the chances they had in the second half, Jeremy Pino's amazing free kick that somehow hit both posts, somehow didn't go in, but ultimately, you want to talk about great stories? Jean-Philippe Mateta scoring this goal. He was supposed to be in a transfer to Milan. The physical failed. What a season he's having, what a year he's having, getting called up by France to the World Cup, and now scoring the game-winning goal to give Crystal Palace European glory. And the coolest part was, as soon as he scored, you see the adulation, what it meant for him, and you had players running out from the sideline, the reserve players. You had all the players in the starting 11 following him as they all knew what was coming up, the big boom kick of the corner flag, and everyone jumped up at the same time. And that image, that moment, I think will always stick with me from this final, because that was a great moment for Crystal Palace fans, for the players, for Oliver Glasner, and for Mateta as well, who's, been a tremendous asset for Crystal Palace and coming through for them in this big situation.
And listen, I say this, I know that you have your doubts and the conversation around English domination and who the true underdog is in this situation, but I live in Carshalton. It's right near Sutton, right near Croydon, in that south to southeast corner of London, and there are two shirts you see regularly on the streets. Yeah, you see your odd Liverpool shirt, your odd United shirt here and there, but there are a lot of Chelsea fans where I live, and there are a lot of Palace fans. And I'll tell you, over these last couple of years, last 3 years really, under Oliver Glasner, the number of kids I've seen wearing Palace kits has just gone up and up and up. And they are a club who have had to compete with the rest of London, as well as the rest of the Premier League, as well as the rest of the UK, who have not ever really been a fashionable club, whose stadium's a little difficult to get to on the train, who's like, they probably are considered the sixth biggest club in London. They're competing with so much greatness around them. And so for them to have this run, for them to have this moment, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing for the Palace fans. And I tell you, I saw and heard a lot of Palace fans on my way into work today from South London. And that was a real, real joy. And I mean, still for me, the likelihood with my kids, I'm not going to make them be Reading fans. I mean, poor them if they have to be. I'm certainly not going to, I'll take my dad's route and try and not make them Spurs fans either. If they want to watch football, if they want to go to see live football, the most likely location will end up, other than Sutton United, is Selhurst Park. And so to see some glory days there, to see some silverware, to double their trophy tally in the space of this 12 months, it's wonderful. It's brilliant to see.
I went down there for the first time this season, and I had an absolute blast. Palace fans are tremendous. You can say what you want about Selhurst Park, but it's still one of those old school grounds that still exists. And for someone like myself that has seen so many great grounds that unfortunately have been torn down or demolished, or clubs don't play there anymore, going to Selhurst for me is like going back in time and experiencing proper football. I mean, it was just a tremendous experience. So I love Palace. I love Palace fans. I am absolutely delighted for them that they get to experience this last 12 months of winning the FA Cup, winning the Community Shield, and now winning European glory. For them, that's core memories they'll be able to share for generations to come, that everyone will talk about this period and this time as a Palace fan and what it meant to be able to continuously find yourself winning trophies.
I'll tell you about my experience last night of the game, because you mentioned I watched the first half, watched it at home, did a little bit of work, had the laptop out, kind of keeping an eye on it. Then the wife got home, and the flat tyre symbol on the car had started going off, and suddenly I was having to go down to the garage and sort that out. And so I flicked on talkSPORT. I was listening to it on the way down. Jean-Philippe Mateta scored on my drive down to the garage, and then while I was inflating the tyres, I started getting messages through from you going, "Congratulations, England, you've done it again." And then, how on earth is it not 2-0? And I had to, upon all of that, go back and rewatch that what should have been in off both posts was just a crazy moment. And of course they're going to end up sweating it out, but I just thought Glasner set them up perfectly. And Mateta's a really interesting case. Kip gets in touch with us on the YouTube chat, says Mateta at Palace is great, such a talent, such a credit to the club. The fact that he's got into this French squad, the fact that he has got a good chance of getting minutes at a World Cup. When we're talking about in the same 2 weeks that we had Max Scott sat in that seat to my right, talking about how the message to Morgan Gibbs-White is that if you're not playing for one of the big clubs, then you're not going to get the opportunity internationally. That, you know, if you're not Ousmane Dembele, if you're not at PSG, or if you're not at Bayern, a Barcelona, a Real, or one of the big Premier League clubs, then how are you ever expecting to get into a France squad? It's such a brilliant story for him. And to think he was very nearly out the door. Yeah. Unreal. Absolutely unreal.
But he came through for them when it mattered most. And credit to Wharton as well. He's the one that took the chance outside the box. Goalkeeper, I'm sure, wishes for Rayo that he could have placed that ball, the save, in a better position. But Mateta, right place, right time, as he consistently has been for Crystal Palace. And this moment of glory for him, the post-match celebrations, the atmosphere was tremendous in Leipzig. I'm a huge fan of the Conference League. I've gone to these matches before. I've gone to knockout matches, and you know, everyone wants to talk about, you know, whether the atmospheres, the environments of the Champions League. You go to a Conference League match, there's not a tourist in sight. Everyone is there, dedicated, loyal, chanting, screaming for 90 minutes, regardless of where you go in Europe. It is one of the most underappreciated and underrated experiences in football right now. And so, having said all that, it is unfortunate that we continuously see this third-tier European competition.
Can I tell you something that happened to me last night on this before you get into it?
Go ahead.
Look, you never want to see fans upset on TV. You obviously know that it's a devastating moment for them. But listening to you and listening to Phil Kitchemalidis over recent days and listening to what this means for Rayo Vallecano and where they've come from as a club and not having online ticket sales, having a tiny club shop, you know, having no online presence, just being this kind of real proper underdog. And then, like, on the 80th minute, they do the classic cut to a kid crying in the crowd thing.
So many Rayo fans
and I was just like, man. As much as I was rooting for the English club in Europe, and there's a debate to be had about whether you should always root for the English club if you're English, or the club of your nation wherever you're from. You know, if it's a rival, do you still root for them to compete in the continent? All of that stuff. I did. You guys had managed to pull up my heartstrings enough. This heart of stone bled last night, and I got genuinely upset watching it. And I was just like, I think finally you've got me at least beyond freezing cold. Like, at least I'm developing a little bit of a soul, apparently.
It was hard not to find a Rayo fan that was emotional. And I was following Phil on IG Story, and even afterwards, after they received their runner-up medals, every single Rayo fan was still in that stadium, still chanting, still applauding, still celebrating, still making sure that every single person that is a part of that staff, the squad, everyone involved in the organization got to fully see the fans' appreciation for this journey and this experience. And you know, it's heartbreaking and it's devastating to see that, because it is a third-tier competition in Europe, and the whole point of the Conference League was to democratize the possibilities of playing European football, but also lifting European glory and having that moment. And when the Premier League wins it 3 out of the 5 times that this tournament has existed, it begs the question whether, you know, should the Premier League be a part of the Conference League? Like, is it a fair fight when the budgets, the salaries? I mean, you're talking about a world in which Wolves is making 117 million quid for being relegated. And you look at Serie A, and Inter made 25 million, I think it is, for winning the Scudetto. There's a huge imbalance that's happening here, and it's meant to tell some great stories, Cinderella stories, celebrating the game in different parts of Europe that typically don't get to celebrate it. But the Premier League has become Goliath, and once again, Goliath came out on top.
But is there a David and Goliath story if you don't have Goliath? Is there a Cinderella story if you don't have... Like, the Premier League, fine, we can play the heel, we can play the villains, if that's how people want to paint us around the rest of Europe, if they want to be annoyed at the dominance in the second and third tier competitions over recent years. The fact is, UEFA are never going to do it, because UEFA are never going to take the Premier League out of these competitions, because it delivers the most viewership, the most TV money, both domestically, but also for their competitions. And you see the fans travel brilliantly. It's not just
they do.
These finals.
Palace fans were tremendous. They were absolutely tremendous.
They have been all across this season, as have Villa fans. And this is where, you know, I have listened and I have taken in, and you have warmed my heart a little bit, but this conversation still, it portrays the Premier League as this one big bad villain, but I still don't think gives enough love to teams like Villa, who were in the Championship so recently, who haven't had European glory for 44 years, to Palace, who only won their first ever major trophy a year ago, despite, as Kip told us on YouTube, being a railway club, one of the oldest teams in England. You know, these are wonderful stories for these people. Yes, does it come in a time where they have a huge advantage because of the TV money in the Premier League? It does. And that's... I don't know what they're meant to do about that, but I just think to take that opportunity away from those fans. It didn't stop Olympiacos from beating Villa. It didn't stop Fiorentina from going and winning the competition. And if Rayo Vallecano had beaten Palace last night, the fact that they'd overcome a giant with the huge wage bill and everything else would have just made the story all the bigger. I generally do root for the underdog. That is my normal position. I can't help it with the teams I support. But I think if you took the Premier League out of these competitions, the competitions are weaker for it.
And that is a fair case to be said. But something has to be done. Whether, again, it is a wage cap, whether it is, you've got 3 Premier League teams that's going to be in Europa next season.
There is part of me, and I know if the Spanish team had won last night, if Rayo Vallecano won, Spain would have 9 teams in Europe, and that's exactly where England and the Premier League now find themselves.
But it's completely different.
It's a farcical number overall. But my point overall is that I'd much rather that we cap Champions League at 4, that we cap Europa League at 2, that we cap the Conference League. And maybe you say, okay, it's capped at 4 and you only get the 5th if it's a competition winner. If it's a Europa League winner and they don't finish in the top 4. If it's a Conference League winner and they don't finish in the top 6. I think that's a situation where if they get in on that basis, okay, you can't deny that. But for it to be 5 from the league going into the Champions League because of a coefficient, because they are doing so well, that is the stuff that does rub me the wrong way a little bit. Like, I'm not this, it's the Champions League, so it has to be the champions, but
I'd say
there are nine teams across 3 competitions is wild.
The Champions League maybe is a bit different because despite the number of Premier League teams that make it to the Champions League, they still have a difficult time winning the trophy, but also Arsenal was the only one that made it to the semifinals, so it's not necessarily a guarantee in that tournament that a Premier League team will lift the trophy or will be the favorite, as it is with PSG and Arsenal. Where Europa is just, it's so imbalanced. If I would have told you, hey, Villa's going to beat Freiburg or Villa's going to win the Europa League before the season started, would you have been surprised?
No, that's fair.
If I would have told you beforehand, hey, Crystal Palace is going to win the Conference League title, would you have been surprised?
They were both the favourites going into it with the bookies, right?
And that's the thing, as a neutral, you want that level of suspense, the idea that, there's going to be more teams involved than just the Premier League.
They also haven't bulldozed their way through. They also haven't,
because they rotated 7 or 8 players
They also haven't they haven't gone into those knockout stages and absolutely beaten everyone. PSG are the favourites for the Champions League. That's, were the favourites going in and are still the favourites.
Champions League is a whole different conversation. I think Champions League as it is it's more so the Europa and Conference League. Like, those are the two. Why should we treat them different? Why should English teams specifically be treated differently? For 15 years,
the money gap. The Liga completely dominated Europe
because of tactics.
And England could barely touch
because it had some of the best managers in the world.
So
the Premier League is dominating. The Premier League is dominating Europa and Conference League because they have more money.
But Sir Alex Ferguson, Arsene Wenger, Jose Mourinho, and so, these are huge name managers who are managing in the Premier League and in Europe and do not have anywhere near the level of success in Europe that they had in the Premier League because it was being dominated from elsewhere. And I don't think it was just tactically it was better, now it's all money. I do think the Premier League has got as high a standard of coaching from top to bottom as it's maybe ever had right now.
That is fair.
And I think you've got to respect
the best players like Pep Guardiola
and Oliver Glasner. And those people deserve the love for what they have performed this season, even if they've done it with a much better budget.
When you have the best players, it makes everyone's job easier. And ultimately, Rayo could never spend the same amount of money in a summer transfer window as Crystal Palace could in January. And the fact of the matter is that is a huge competitive advantage that the Premier League has. And until that is balanced, you can go ahead and shoehorn in. You can go ahead and shoehorn in every season that there's going to be a Premier League team until something gets changed with this Swiss model. Every August, you might as well go shoehorn in. There's going to be a Premier League team that wins the Europa League. There's going to be a Premier League team that wins the Conference League. And until something changes,
I disagree. I think there are plenty of big teams in Europe. Serie A needs a huge bounce back. La Liga can bounce back from outside those big two. Like, I think there are real opportunities, and I'm glad that the Champions League teams don't fall into the Europa League, because what you were seeing too often is it was those teams were falling down, and then it was the big teams from Spain, the big teams from Italy. They were the ones who were winning that competition.
I agree. I think it's great for this.
But I think you also have to respect that for those Premier League teams, I don't want to call money a burden. I don't want to be arguing the capitalist point with the American. Like, I don't want to be that guy.
You're not going to win.
but the fact is that those teams, yes, like Andoni Iraola might take the Palace job over the Leverkusen job we hear because the budget is 3 times the size. But it's still, you have to be competitive with your own league. So the people you're competing with to sign players are going to have more money than you, more glamour than you, European competition, everything else that comes on top of that. And the fact is that other nations see the Premier League coming and rub their hands together. What you are selling a player to internally within Bundesliga, within La Liga, or between those leagues, you might as well drop 40% on top of it if you're selling it to the Premier League. And so, as much as it's, great that they've got these huge budgets, it's also, they're treated by the rest of the world as differently because of it. And yes, Palace might have spent this and Villa might have spent that. But actually, if Villa were buying the exact same players and weren't based in the Premier League, they'd have been spending a lot less money.
At the end of the day, Crystal Palace finished 15th in the Premier League and won the Conference League. If that's a competitive balance, where Leverkusen fighting in and out in the Bundesliga with the players that they have available to them, with the financial restrictions that the Bundesliga has, if
Premier League's more competitive top to bottom.
And that's what I'm saying. Tottenham has finished 17th. I'm sure they could have ran through the Conference League themselves too.
Not having it. I don't believe Tottenham would have won the Conference League if they were in it this year. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's how bad they were. We're loving all the comments on YouTube, so get in touch with us. TalkSport S Word. You'll find it as the S Word powered by TalkSport is our channel. You'll find us also on the TalkSport channel as well. And you can get in touch with us in all these usual formats: Instagram, X, YouTube as well. In those comment sections, drop us a note. Look over the content that we've done previously. Big show coming up today. Ben Jacobs is going to be joining us on the topic of the conversation of where is this money coming from? Barcelona looking like they're going to throw around nearly 200 million on wingers in the coming days. How on earth are they managing that?
The Daily Deep Dive into the world of football. The S Word from talkSPORT. talkSPORT presents
the S Word.
High energy exchanges, fiery fan reactions, and the biggest football debate.
The S Word.
From talkSPORT.
Nearly looked at the wrong camera. These are going really well today, guys. Welcome back to the S Word from talkSPORT with myself, Will Gavin, and Master Tesfatsian alongside me.
You're screaming my name or cursing my name.
Yeah, I mean, I told him in the last section I was starting to warm up a little bit to his bleeding heart way of thinking, and I did yesterday. Watch those fans cry on TV, got really sad, and then went, Master! Yeah. He's cracked my cold heart. Get involved in the show. You can do so on YouTube at talkSPORT and at the talkSPORT S Word powered by talkSPORT.
I'm curious, what are comments saying on this one? Because usually when they think I'm anti-England for some reason. I'm not. I'm pro-Europe. I'm pro-democratizing. I'm pro-giving people a chance. I'm an American. We love parity. We love parity.
Feels a bit like you're anti-Europe, but that's fine. We're anti-England at least.
I'm not.
I'll tell you in a moment. I'll tell you that also coming up, Steve Nicol's going to be joining the show. We'll be talking Bournemouth after it looks like they're going to be able to keep hold of some of their big players after qualifying for the Europa League. Christina Unkel will join us this hour, and with Mo Salah playing his last game for Liverpool, and our conversation coming up today with Steve Nicol, we're going to do our top 10 African players in Premier League history, draft style. I'm just going to throw some curveball in. I'm going to get to like number 3 overall and just be like JJ Okocha in there. I mean, it could be top 7. Just saying.
It was so nice. I had to name him twice.
Excuse me. In the comments, Alex does get in touch, says, I agree, Will, about a cap. Adding more teams for doing well just gives more chance for that country's clubs to do well and get more spots again. It just avalanches. And this is the problem with the coefficient. It's basically a top 5 in the Premier League right now.
How do you give you credit for that? I said the cap, but I agree with you. Everyone keeps saying top 4. At this point, if you're a Premier League side, it's going to be top 5 for the foreseeable future. There's no way you talk about Champions League spots in the Premier League and simply limit it as only 4 teams. You can go ahead and assume at the start of August that everyone's battling for top 5 and potentially top 6, depending on how the season goes. But there will be 5 Premier League teams in the Champions League for the foreseeable future, unless this format changes in some capacity.
Well, one team they will be competing with is, of course, the might of Barcelona. I have no enemies. You might be making one in a moment. It says, how can Barcelona afford Gordon and Alvarez? Maybe Premier League clubs should learn their place. About time, Ennit. And they wrote Ennit as well. Well, let's get into it, because Transfer Guru, brilliant reporter for talkSPORT, just been breaking news left, right and centre in recent days. He is on fire. Ben Jacobs joins the show right now. Ben, how are you doing, brother?
Good afternoon. It's getting busy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not like there's anything major happening in, I don't know, like 14 days' time or anything, right?
I mean, somehow I'm going to have to go West Coast, US men's national team and transfer window all at the same time. But that's the thrill of the job.
Hardest working man in sport, I tell you that for
100%.
Ben, just tell us, right? We've been speculating and discussing these Barcelona transfers over recent days. Where's Anthony Gordon going to land? Now, Julián Alvarez apparently in the mix as well. What no one quite understands, and tell us what you're hearing. But also, how on earth are Barcelona doing this when we were told there was going to be no money for the foreseeable for them?
Yeah, I think the issue is La Liga's stringent financial rules, and it's satisfying the domestic position rather than necessarily financial fair play. But if you think about Barcelona, they're the La Liga champions, they've got Champions League money, and maybe most importantly, they're allowed to do by La Liga a kind of one out, one in. So by freeing up Robert Lewandowski's wage in particular, that allows Barcelona to move more aggressively in the market, because if you're calling that out Lewandowski and they're in Anthony Gordon, the wage of Gordon is significantly lower than Lewandowski, and therefore Barcelona on their annual books, as La Liga look at their projections, are actually saving money. Add to the mix that Gordon is going to sign a 5-year deal, so the transfer is amortized or divided by 5, and that makes it a little bit more palatable as well. And then if they go and move for Julián Alvarez, that's where more financial gymnastics will be required, because whereas Gordon is actually relatively strong value for money over 5 years and less than Robert Lewandowski, to bring in Julián Alvarez at some point, Barcelona may need a significant outgoing, because Atletico Madrid are looking for a fee at least surpassing the 120 million euros that Barcelona paid Atleti for Antoine Griezmann in 2019. So it actually makes sense to me that they can bring in Gordon. And if this was a Premier League club, we'd be saying they won the league. They've got Champions League football. Of course, they've got money to spend, but it's Barcelona and they have had financial problems in the past. And Javier Tebas and La Liga are not as easy to deal with in terms of the financial rules compared to the Premier League. So Gordon's fine. Let's see whether Alvarez gets over the line. That presents more of a challenge. And of course, you have Marcus Rashford to some extent in limbo, but sources say they're still trying to sign him in addition to Anthony Gordon as well. So as you said in your question, Barcelona, come not even the end of the window, but before it even formally opens, might be in a position where they've spent somewhere close to 250 million euros.
We want no left wingers to 3 left wingers, all in one go. Like, it's wild.
So take me through the mental or financial gymnastics that Barcelona will have to go through to get Julián Alvarez over the line if, in fact, everything goes through with the Anthony Gordon transfer move. Who do you think could be on the way out in this 1-for-1 rule that La Liga has, and how will they be able to finance it?
Yeah, I think Barcelona have always maintained that Balde or De Jong are players that they want to keep. We'll have to wait and see whether that's the case, particularly with Balde. You've got Rafinha and Saudi interest. It would be a significant surprise if they sanctioned a sale right now, simply because he's been outstanding. And I don't think that Barcelona have got an appetite to do that deal. But Saudi are prepared to try. And then Barcelona's main perspective in all of this is, yeah, they could bring in a fee, and that's the same for any Premier League club, because remember, the fee from a singular player, even if modest, is declared on your annual books, whereas what you're spending on a player is divided, if you so choose to, by the length of the contract, and that is amortization. So 70 million in, hypothetically, because that's the same fee as Gordon, and you get through a short-term financial problem on that annual books, whereas your amortization is 70 divided by 5, so it's a lot smaller as far as your annual accounts. So that's the kind of commonplace thing now that Chelsea, of course, made famous or put in the media, even though plenty of clubs had done it in the past, and the only difference was Chelsea had found a loophole and they divided by longer than 5, whereas now UEFA have capped it at a maximum of 5, even if you give somebody a 6 or a 7-year contract. And then I think from Barcelona's perspective, they would point to the fact that even without an outgoing, you've got a scenario where their wage bill is coming down. So a lot of these contracts that Barca are handing out now have either an incentive-driven structure or they have a decrease in wage if Barcelona were not to get Champions League football. And on top of that, there's a real desire within the club to be creative with existing players, whether or not they offer new deals or alternatively it could be a new signing. And Barca have in the past got around the financial rules by lowering their wage bill in the short term and deferring some of the wages or bonuses. And if players really want to join Barcelona, sometimes they're prepared to make those concessions. So Joan Laporta is quite confident that he can spend at this magnitude, and Barca sources argue pretty clearly that they're not in the same dire financial position as maybe they were 2 summers ago.
So I'm over here. I got the calculator. I'm over here I'm crunching all these numbers you're talking about, and I carry the 2, add the 1. I'm crunching all these numbers, and is there room for a defender? We're talking about 3 attackers right now, and a team that's played a high line, and obviously the defensive issues and adding depth defensively. Would there be enough room or money to bolster defensively their back line?
Yeah, I think they're looking at certain centre-back options, and this has been quite long-standing. We know Mickey van de Ven, for example, is one player that Barcelona appreciate. They've taken a look at the Ibrahima Konate situation as well. At the time we're live, that hangs in the balance, but I think we'll get clarity soon as to whether he's staying or going at Liverpool. And from Barca's perspective, they will potentially feel if their main outlay is on attacking reinforcements and if their absolute priority is to replace the goals from the departing Robert Lewandowski, then as they move further back in the field, yes, they'll want to make reinforcements, but they won't be with the same sort of budget and they won't necessarily be the same kind of marquee names, or if they are marquee names such as a Konate, they'll basically be free transfers. So I think they'll be more opportunistic and economical the further back the field they go, whereas all efforts and all money at the moment are being put on attack. And as you say, it could effectively be 3 wingers or versatile forwards all coming in. Gordon's already in Barcelona. He will sign a 5-year deal subject to a medical. Rashford is waiting to see whether Barcelona and Man United can come to an agreement. And Barca's starting point is not to pay the 30 million euros option to buy, which is valid until the 15th of June, and instead see whether Manchester United would be prepared to do another season-long loan. So that will again be financial gymnastics. It will defer all the payments by a year, likely with an obligation or a conditional obligation to buy at the end of it. Otherwise, I doubt Manchester United would be willing to do business. And yet Man United don't want to do Barca any favours, so they're just saying, pay the 30 million euros or there's no deal there. And then keep an eye on the Julián Alvarez situation, because Barcelona feel that Atletico Madrid's asking price of over 120 million euros and as high as 150 million could potentially come down, and they might try and get creative with that deal. At the moment, they've not offered any players, so it's going to be a straight cash deal. But the first formal bid for Julián Alvarez is expected before the World Cup starts.
Wow. Crazy. And you got to feel for Marcus Rashford a little bit that 15th of June, suddenly you're going to the World Cup without knowing what your future is. Such a mess for the players in that situation. There are 2 more stories just wanted to pick your brains on, Ben. One of them was the Enzo Fernandez situation at Chelsea, because he wants out. Apparently, I thought in the pivot in that Xabi Alonso system, he'd actually be a perfect fit, and maybe Xabi Alonso could convince him to stay. But sounds like he wants out and he wants European football. I've got to be honest, Ben. I don't see, based on his form this season, who's going to pay £120 million for him.
Yeah, it's a high asking price, and I think that's indicative of the fact that Chelsea would prefer to keep Enzo Fernandez, but he's not quite in that category of João Pedro or Cole Palmer, where offers would automatically be rejected because it's not about the money. Chelsea quite simply see those two as untouchable. Enzo Fernandez and Chelsea could get on the same page under Xabi Alonso, and if they do, things could move to the other extreme and the contract talks could continue, but there's been no breakthrough at the moment. And the reason why is because Enzo Fernandez wants to leave, and Chelsea at the moment, acknowledging the player's position, would engage, but the offer would have to be at 120 million. So not just getting their money back, not just satisfying what's known as the book loss, in other words, how much is left on the transfer, which is roughly 70 million. Chelsea want 120 million, so more than the 106 million pounds that they paid Benfica when Enzo Fernandez joined after the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. And that will send a message to the market that this is no pushover deal. This is no desperation on Chelsea's part to sell. But if the right offer comes, and it will have to be high, Chelsea would sanction an exit. And then you think, who could pay that kind of fee? Probably only 3 clubs. One would be Manchester City, but they're entirely focused on Elliot Anderson. They did hold some formative conversations with the camp of Enzo Fernandez, but nothing really has developed. And Elliot Anderson and Manchester City is the deal that is advancing at the moment. Paris Saint-Germain, but I'm told they're looking for a different kind of midfielder, maybe more of a rigid number 6, and Enzo Fernandez has gone from a 6 at Benfica to a number 8 and then a number 10. And the fact he's played more advanced at Chelsea might put PSG off because they've got a lot of options, and they're actually trying to sign Yan Diomande in competition with Liverpool over on that right-hand side. And then Real Madrid. And Real is the one that Enzo Fernandez wants. Real is the club that Enzo Fernandez has been flirting with. But again, we have to wait for Jose Mourinho to come in. And are Real going to go for a more versatile box-to-box all-energy midfielder? And then it could develop with Enzo Fernandez. Or are they going to, again, look for that more defined 6, in which case Rodri could be the name that Real Madrid go for, and then suddenly Enzo Fernandez doesn't actually have any concrete options.
We know that our next guest is ready to go, because we just saw at the top of the screen Steve Nicol has entered the waiting room. So we'll be with you in a moment, I promise, Liverpool legend. Are you going to ask about Antonio Areola?
I am.
There we go. Yeah, cool.
We're going from the player transfers to the managerial job still available, and obviously the biggest job still open and vacant is AC Milan. What's the latest there? Is Areola still an option there? I'm hearing rumors about Pochettino potentially. He's supposed to be focused on the U.S. men's national team. What's going on with AC Milan right now? Give me the latest on where do you think they go?
Yeah, Andoni Iraola has held some face-to-face talks with Milan at the time we're live. It's not progressing, and as a consequence, Milan are starting to look at other options. Iraola had always wanted to stay in the Premier League. His only viable option at the moment is Crystal Palace. They're pushing. They've got Europa League football. That's not developing yet, but I think part of the reason why is Iraola wanted to end the season, finish with Bournemouth on a high, and then from there see whether or not certain offers came before taking his time, knowing that he's a man in demand. So Palace are waiting for an answer. Milan feel that Iraola won't join at the moment, even though Zlatan Ibrahimovic was trying to get that one over the line. Could that open the door to Maurizio Pochettino? Potentially, but as you say, he's focused on the World Cup for now, and it's not the easiest time to be speaking to Pochettino when he's preparing for the warm-up game against Senegal, and then they'll be off to the camp via a game against Germany in Chicago. So I think if it is to be Pochettino and Milan, then Milan would have to be patient. With Iraola, he has Leverkusen as another club that have made an approach too. So still no decision from Andoni Iraola, but I think we won't have to wait too much longer before we understand his next destination, because sources that I speak to say that the former Bournemouth boss would like clarity as to where he's going before the month is out in an ideal world, or certainly by, at the latest, the first week in June.
Brilliant stuff, Ben. Thank you so much for your time. As always, wonderful stuff. Ben Jacobs joining the show. We've got Liverpool legend Steve Nicol joining us up next.
We do.
We already know he's in the waiting room, so let's not waste any time. This is the S Word. Back with some Liverpool chat next.
Around here, we only use the F word.
talkSPORT presents
The S Word. presents The S Word. Listen again and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and on the talkSPORT USA YouTube channel.
You're back with the S Word on talkSPORT, because around here we use the F word, never the S word, despite the fact we are out here for our North American football fans. Giving them
use the
show
S word.
They love and deserve. Yeah, I don't have a buzzer to buzz you today, though. So, what is this? What's going on in there? I never know what you're doing in there. You're watching the S Word, either on the S Word YouTube channel or via the talkSPORT YouTube channel. You can also watch all of the stuff back on the YouTube channel. Plus, we're across Instagram, across X. You see all those lovely ways to get in touch on the side screen there. A little bit of breaking news before we get to our next guest. Fabrizio Romano has just tweeted to say that Neymar had suffered a muscle injury and is expected to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. Tests have confirmed. Means he will likely miss Brazil's friendly games ahead of the World Cup and also potentially the opening game against Morocco. I mean, he hasn't been in that squad for 3 years. The fact is, he was a semi-surprise call-up despite the Rodrigo injury, despite everything else going on. It was a huge amount of speculation in the build-up to that. He did get the call-up, but now with this muscle injury, may miss the start of the World Cup.
It's probably better than the initial thoughts. I thought he was going to miss the entire World Cup once you heard the news coming and João Pedro would make the roster. But it seems with this news that he'll probably be in the United States for the World Cup. So if you're a Neymar fan, that's great news. If you're not, tough luck.
Let's turn our attention then from Neymar. It's a big story. I'm sure there'll be plenty more opportunity to discuss. And we can talk a little bit of Scotland as well, a little bit of Liverpool as we go in our deep dives. But it was confirmed today, is our other bit of breaking news, that Steve Clarke has confirmed a new contract with Scotland for another 4 years through until 2030. So a man who will have been in Scotland squads with him and can talk some Liverpool as well from the brilliant ESPN FC. And a man I used to talk to on overnights all the time. I'm excited to get back together. Steve Nicol's with us. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, how's it going? All good?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time out to join us. Look, before we get into Liverpool and what they should be doing this summer, Steve Clarke signs on for another 4 years with Scotland, takes them to the World Cup this year. You know, former teammate of yours, thoughts on Steve Clarke sticking around as Scotland manager?
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to hear that, because I'm a little surprised. I thought after this World Cup that he would have stepped away. I kind of got the impression that it had enough of some of the harsh criticism that was going around, particularly during this qualifying campaign. So, I mean, that's great news. You know, no surprise. Steve Clarke's not somebody who backs down for a challenge, and he's going to have another challenge. You know, what he's done to get Scotland in not only in the Euros, but now in the World Cup. I mean, it's 20-odd years since we got to the World Cup, so that just tells you straight off the bat what a great job he's done. But, yeah, he's taken on another huge challenge, because he will have to probably dismantle a lot of this squad and start again. So good luck to him.
We'll switch over to Liverpool now, and unfortunately they can't dismantle the squad because they spent 417 million quid this season trying to bolster up the Premier League champs, the defending champs, and it obviously was a disappointing season. But as you look into the summer, do you keep Arne Slot? What do you do to try and improve on what was a terrible year for Liverpool?
Wow. Where do you start? I guess Arne Slot's probably the best place to start. I get the impression that Arne Slot will still be at Liverpool at the start of the season. Now, whether I agree or disagree with that, at the end of the day, FSG have made a lot of big decisions since they got to Liverpool, and the majority of them have been fantastic decisions. And so if they decide that he deserves to have another chance, and probably for most of the season I was saying that because he won the Premier League the previous year, that gave him some time in the bank. However, I'd have to say that by the end of the season, I'd kind of changed my tune. I'm not so sure how he turns this around, because it's gotten so bad and it seems so toxic as well. You know, the end of the season with the whole Mo Salah and then what, half a dozen or a dozen of the players basically agreeing with what he was saying. I mean, it smells of a bit of anarchy, to be honest. It smells as though there's not too many behind the manager. And when you have so many players that are not behind the manager, how are you supposed to A, turn it round, and B, turn it round into a team that can challenge for the championship? So, listen, I expect Arne Slot now to start the season, but he's up against it big time. You know, he's going to have to rejuvenate the players that he has, but he's absolutely going to have to sign players. Number one, because they need bodies, but number two, they need quality in order to compete, certainly for the Premier League and the Champions League.
I'm sure that, and you know, the apologists point to the injuries, Ekitike, Isak, those players who they did bring in missing. Wirtz taking a long time to bed in, but looking much better in the second half of the season, even if not in the run-in. But I think you're right, incredibly short leash going into this year for him. I can't imagine they're going to have 400 million to spend again then. So where would you focus? Where do you think they need to reinforce?
Well, you're asking me that now. Let's go the other way around. I think there was probably two players who actually performed the way they were supposed to. And I'm talking about Ekitike and Szoboszlai. After that, there wasn't a player who performed anywhere close to what they can or are supposed to do. So to try and turn around and say, well, it's definitely that bit or that bit or that bit, it's very difficult. You know, the fullback positions, you know, Kerkez, up until now, has shown that Liverpool's too big for him. And on the other side, Conor Bradley, who I thought was going to be the next Liverpool fullback for decades, can't keep fit. Frimpong's come in, and I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure what he does best. He's not fullback. You know, when he goes forward, unlike Trent Alexander-Arnold, he can't pick a player out. And the two centre-backs, Konate and Van Dijk, who are going to be at the World Cup this year, who and particularly Van Dijk's getting older, you know, we can't rely on them. I mean, the midfield three, I mean, this sounds as though I'm butchering everybody, but these are just facts. The midfield three, other than Szoboszlai, I mean, what happened to Gravenberg and McAllister? And then going forward, we had nothing going forward. So, I mean, where do you start is the question. It's not. I don't think it's an easy fix to say there's one position or two positions. I mean, somehow he has to sign four players, in my opinion, back, middle and front, that are going to rejuvenate this team. And actually, when I say that, it reminds me of 86, 87 with Liverpool, when Kenny went out after a poor season, certainly not as bad as this last season for Liverpool, but he went out and signed Aldridge, he signed Barnes, Beardsley and Houghton, and that transformed us. It got everybody going. That's what Arne Slot's going to have to do.
I mean, but you go back to, and you said perhaps with Slot that whether you think it or not, FSG is going to move forward with him. We've been talking about Areola all morning long. I mean, he's right there for the taking. He's looking for a home. We've seen him make the most of the talent that he has available for him every single stop of the way. Why would you not take that chance?
I would have absolutely no problem if Areola took over. I mean, you just have to watch. Anybody that's watched Bournemouth playing this season or over the last 2 or 3 seasons, it's been night and day compared to what Arne Slot was able to produce with supposedly better players last season. I mean, it was just torture from first to the last day of the season. So, yeah, the way Areola gets his players playing, the fact that he lost so many players but still turned the team into a better side than it was before he lost his supposed best players was incredible. So, yeah, I would have no problem with Areola coming in. But it seems as though that Arne Slot's going to stay, and there's no possible way that Areola is not starting the season next year with one of the bigger and better teams. I just unfortunately don't think it's going to be Liverpool.
It's fascinating because you mentioned the midfield, and I think for me, when people want to go after Arne Slot for winning it with Jurgen Klopp's team and not, you know, that not being his what he'd imposed on it. Actually, it's guys like Gravenberch who he did bring in, who did make starters, who he did turn into really great players. And I think the hope has to be for Liverpool fans is that it was just a knock-on effect. It was, you talk about so many issues last season that surely you can't be that unlucky with injuries again, that unlucky with form again. But I worry about, it's players like Virgil van Dijk, it's players like losing Mo Salah, these guys who have been such stalwarts who they age out, they drop in form, and suddenly they've not bought behind them. They've not replaced him behind them. And the young talent that I've always thought as Liverpool as a developer, I've always thought as Liverpool as a team that bring in great young talent. And I don't see where those threads are right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, the Van Dijks and the Mo Salahs those are the players that, as a player in the team and as a younger player, and maybe not as experienced, but somebody who's coming through, those are the guys that you rely on during the game when things are not quite going the right way, or when you need a goal, or when you need a challenge, or you need some organisation, or you need a kick up the backside, or whatever it is. Those are the types of guys during the game that give you that. And as you said, the fact that they are now going the other way, which unfortunately happens to us all, happens to everybody. But while that's going on, and certainly just before it starts to happen, you have to be able to smell it as a coach and as a club, and then you have to make moves so the transition from those players to somebody else kind of happens without really noticing it too much. But that is 100% not happening at Liverpool right now. Unfortunately, the players who were the stalwarts and who are coming to the end look as though they're being asked to go the extra mile once again when possibly they're just not quite capable of it.
Well, they need to bring Steve Nicol back, and then they need to bring Steve Gerrard back, and they need to bring back...
Good luck with that.
Stevie, always good fun. Thank you so much for taking time to join us. And we're sorry to Liverpool fans that it wasn't more positive, but,
we got to keep it a buck.
Yeah, tell me about it. I've spent 12 months like this.
Remember the good times, Stevie. Remember the good times. It's not that long ago you were champions.
Yes.
We can all hope it happens to you next year. I don't mean that. I love you dearly. It's got to be Arsenal's to lose next season, right? Has to be Arsenal's to lose next season with everything else we're talking about.
Again, I did not bring up Arsenal. Just let the record show. I did not bring up Arsenal.
I will keep bringing them up, and we will keep bringing them up as we get to the Champions League final on Saturday. Live on talkSPORT. We'll be building up to that more and more over the coming days. But with Mo Salah leaving Liverpool in the next hour, we'll do our top 10 African Premier League footballers of all time. We're going to talk some Bournemouth on Anthony Iraola leaving. What next for them? And of course, Christina Unkel will be here for some clear and obvious.
From kickoff to the full-time whistle, talkSPORT presents the S Word. featuring Bill Gavin and Master Tess Fassian. And a squad of big-name contributors. The S Word from talkSPORT.
Another cracking hour coming up for you on the S Word here from talkSPORT. Just remember, this is the show that breaches the gap between our North American soccer fans and us English fans here in the UK and around the world. America is what we say around these parts.
Gav's not here, so it's going to
I thought Sam, because now that Sam's the man in charge on the buttons, I really thought we were going to be absolutely spammed with that. There we go. We got some Kirk Cousins in the house. We're going to be doing that.
I was there for that, by the way.
In that hallway.
I mean, I wasn't in the hallway, but I was outside. I was at that match, though.
Yeah, there you go. Commanders through and through over here. We're going to be talking top Premier League footballers, African footballers of all time. We're going to do our top 10 draft style for our US fans. We're also going to be doing Clear and Obvious. Christina Unkel will be joining the show. Plus, we'll talk some World Cup tickets. I don't know if you've seen. There's about 50,000 empty seats right now for England's first warm-up game with New Zealand. A little bit of Enzo Fernandez chat as well. But Master, let's talk some Bournemouth.
Let's talk some Bournemouth. We talked a little Bournemouth already, but let's talk some more Bournemouth.
Listen, you threw this out as a topic during our pre-show meeting. We were sat having a lovely peri-peri chicken, having a drink and having a chat before the show, and you went, I want to talk about Bournemouth.
I do.
Lay it on me, brother.
Well, because Bournemouth's it's a great time to be a Bournemouth fan. Great time to be a Cherry.
Mm-hmm. Where's Max Scott with his bag of cherries when we need him?
I mean, those are my cherries.
Oh, they were you. Yeah. You brought the cherries. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
Because they helped Arsenal.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
Just wanted you to bring Arsenal up again, that's all.
I did not.
Nope. Thanks, brother.
It's a great time to be a Bournemouth fan right now. I mean, you made it to Europa League. A tremendous season that you had in the Premier League. You've got some tremendous talent, some European football. Despite the fact that Areola is going to move on, it's a culmination of many different headwinds that are coming together now, and I thought about them today as I saw the reports coming out about Alex Scott and Rayan and Junior Krupi, which of course the great Ben Jacobs all over it as well. That these three players, Bournemouth has no intentions to sell them, and so. And it's particularly with Rayan, he has a £100 million release clause that doesn't come into effect until next season. So with these three players coming off of a season in which your whole back line you had to replace Antoine Semenyo in the January transfer window. So many pieces were coming in and out. You're going to lose Senesi this summer. How good can Bournemouth be? How attractive of a place can Bournemouth be? What kind of players can they continue to attract? How competitive can they be in Europa League? And is with Areola leaving, is this a situation where is this their ceiling? Is this their cap? It's, again, not to put a cap on them and what they're capable of doing, because you want the story to grow and it's a great story, but it's hard not to think about what Areola has done. And we've seen these situations play out time and time again, either in the Premier League or Europe, where a great manager like him leaves, and can the foundation that was established maintain itself without the manager?
The fact is, Antonio Areola, when he turned up, was a great get for Bournemouth. He'd been linked with some big jobs across Europe. Maybe not, top tier Champions League level jobs, but he'd been linked with big name Spanish teams, obviously being from there. He'd been linked with teams who were already in the European places. He was seen as kind of the future of that kind of Basque Country management. Like, he was seen as a guy who was going to be eventually at a Pep Guardiola's level, or whoever that might be. And so it was always a huge get for them. I've said it numerous times on the show, and Bournemouth fans have dug me out for the fact that I feel like Bournemouth fans have already accepted he's going, so don't want to hear this talk. But I don't see Palace as a huge step up, as much as doing no dirty to Palace fans. Great success last night, but
why not?
I see it as about a club on the same level. Okay, Bournemouth have the stadium issues, right? They still need to redevelop, still only got 22,000 in there, still need to get that up to a level where they can compete on a Premier League level, not just from TV money, but from better sales and receipts. They need to. I remember I was doing commentary for the Super Saddlers for Walsall back in the day. This is going back to kind of 2012, so 13, 14 years ago. And I remember going down to the South Coast and doing a Bournemouth game in League One, and that stadium could, barely hold 9,000 at that point, and 3 of the stands have been redeveloped since then. And it's taken a real step forward over that period of time, the vitality. And it's, a Premier League club. They've done brilliantly to establish themselves. They've been an absolute phenomenal churn of talent coming out of there. But you mentioned it. Semenyo, we thought was going to go last summer, goes in the January transfer window. We see it with Forest last summer. Morgan Gibbs-White, we thought was going to go. They keep hold of him, but are they going to be able to keep hold of Anderson and him this summer? And it just feels like these clubs, like, unless they're going to be able to keep hold of a manager, have big investment in them, like, they are going to just keep having the vultures circling, people coming to try and pick apart their best players. And it's got to be a combination of that if you're going to let anyone go, you do not accept less than top dollar for them to make sure that you can restock. You do it as early as humanly possible so you can do it. Because losing a player like Semenyo in January, it's astonishing you can recover from that, because you can't buy in January particularly well. But first and foremost, before anything else, having gone from Eddie Howe, getting them into where they were, establishing them as a Premier League club, taking them onto the verge of Europe, doing such a phenomenal job there, then Antonio Iraola coming in and being such a beacon of brilliance for them there. The first and foremost things is that they need to desperately find, like, they need to know that the guy who is coming in, that they know that Marco Rose is going to come in and be sensational and continue that high standard. And it's a near impossible job to do, because you've managed to create gold out of buttons, and actually is he a guy who's going to be able to do the same thing once again? Like, it's so difficult for a team like this.
It is, but it does help if you do maintain some of your structure, and having an Alex Scott, having a Rayan, having a Junior Krupi, and having, the ownership group maintaining the fact that they're not going to sell him is a great start to make sure that he doesn't get off on the wrong foot. But it is big shoes to fill, and not only just to fill, but also to continue the acceleration and continue the elevation of this club.
I love that they've continued to do it the right way, right? I love
100%.
I love that they have been a club who you come up from the Championship, you establish yourselves, you don't spend silly, you build the stadium up. They're going to have another 9,000 seat expansion. It's been signed off by the council. They're in a race to get it done to, compete in the Europa League for next season. But all of those things are brilliant. Like, invest in the academy, invest in the stadium. But it just might be that now is the moment that Bournemouth have to say, right, if we're going to compete on all these fronts, if we're going to go into Europe and try and be another English club competing in Europe, and we're still not going to suffer from what Nottingham Forest had this year with the relegation battle, what Tottenham did off the back of their Europa League win, if we're not going to be a team who, while battling on all those fronts, look tired on all of them and don't have a deep enough squad, maybe this is the summer where Bournemouth have to go, right, we've been here for long enough. Maybe we need to flex that financial clout. We need to sign a few players for upwards of the 30, 40, 50 millions. They've done it before and not had huge success with it, but this might be their moment right now to say, right, if we're going to do this, not only do we need to retain our guys, but we actually need to go and spend £50 million on 2 or 3 players.
And their recruiting has been fantastic. So it's if they're going to spend, maybe it's not as big, but having a budget to build out the squad depth, to maintain playing on Thursdays and Sundays, which, as you mentioned, we're talking about someone like Crystal Palace that finished 15th in the Premier League. Even though they won the Conference League, the squad depth that they had suffered immensely all season long, to the point where Oliver Glasner had to make the decision to focus in on the second half of the season on the Conference League and getting through the knockout stage. So does Bournemouth want to find themselves in that position? But it's just an interesting time with the Premier League with, again, all of this money pouring in from the rights and, obviously the attraction of the Premier League that everyone's watching, that you kind of have this second tier of clubs, the Brightons, the Bournemouths, the Crystal Palaces, maybe even throw in the Fulhams, that, again, have maintained themselves from, the battles of relegation and find themselves on that cusp of battling for Champions League, but maybe really realistically fighting for Europa League and Conference League. Is that essentially the ceiling for Bournemouth? Is there a world in which Bournemouth can continue this elevation and, do things that we haven't seen or Brighton do or Fulham do? Or
I think the team you look at most recently is Aston Villa, right?
100%.
Who you get it right with the manager, but also, like, as much as Aston Villa over the course of the last 10 years have spent huge sums of money to get out of the Championship and re-establish themselves as a Premier League team, over the past 3 windows, they've only had a net spend of £41 million. They've bought very cleverly and they've developed their own talent as well.
They spent so much money.
Yeah.
Financial fair play kind of handcuffed them.
And look, you look at who Bournemouth have brought in and done brilliant with. Ryan, only costing them just south of 25 million. Guys like Alex Scott, 25 million. Yes, from the Championship, 25 million is a lot of money to spend to bring a guy in from somewhere like Bristol City, but he's been sensational. You imagine if those guys did go out of the door now, they're getting 3 times that figure from another club in the Premier League or elsewhere. So, yes, they've done brilliantly, but if you want to put your foot down, if you want to accelerate, if you want to move forwards, I think Bournemouth maybe need to go reach into the pockets and spend a bit more money.
I just put them in a different categories. I would put Villa in the same categories like Everton and Newcastle. And
I guess they are sleeping giants. The stadium's bigger and everything else, but they are the model for how to do it recently.
Yeah, it just with the stadium, it really restricts how much they're able to spend, and that's the thing with the expansion. And if they ever do get a new stadium, that will generate more revenue that then they can use to, try and take that leap. But in the meantime, this is the predicament they're in. It's a fantastic situation to be in for Bournemouth as it continues to grow in popularity and just becomes a great story, not just in England, but also all throughout Europe.
I'd love to actually hear from Bournemouth fans on this, because it's really interesting what you say about the ceiling. Have they hit the ceiling? Have they got as far as they can? Because I think Bournemouth fans would never have dreamed of finishing top 6, getting a Europa League place, all of that. Like being on the verge of being Champions League football. Like they were that level of team this season. It is phenomenal. And I tell you, again, I go back to thinking about visiting Bournemouth when they were a League One team and thinking about great fan base at that point, but they were seen as an unfashionable South Coast club. The other teams there, Southampton, Portsmouth were a Premier League team. They were winning FA Cups at that time. These are teams that it's a team that have done everything in the right way up until now. Are Bournemouth fans happy with where they are? Obviously elated with what they've got. But if you turn around and say to a Bournemouth fan right now, this is your ceiling. You're going to play in the Europa League. You're going to get some lovely European trips. Pat on the head. Well done. Nice for you. But next season, you're probably going to be finishing in the bottom half of the table because you're competing in Europe as well. And it's going to be tough. And it's a new manager coming in. Like, a Bournemouth fan's already in that mentality that so many fan bases often do, where they then go, right, 40 points, survival, have some nice European away days. Or do Bournemouth fans think they can kick on? Do they believe, yes, this is our moment. Let's push on. Let's try and compete with the big dogs. Because I love the idea of it. I think the former is probably more of the reality.
It probably is, but you can't help but think as a Bournemouth fan, hey, we got a shot at Europa. Regardless of what the field looks like, if I've got Alex Scott, Rayan, Junior Krupi on my side, I feel comfortable and confident that wherever you go in Europe, we have a good chance to succeed and get results. Again, that the rest of that comes on to Marco Reus and Rose and what he's able to do to bring out the best of the incoming players and the gelling. And does he change the formation? Does he put his own imprints into the squad and this upcoming season? But I would have to think in the same lineage that we've seen some of these other clubs in that same realm, battling for Conference League, battling for Europa, and also just trying to make sure they can maintain their level of play in the Premier League so they're not in a relegation battle. I think that'd be a good year for Bournemouth. Making it to the semifinal maybe of Europa League, making it to the final.
Semifinal would be sensational.
That'd be fantastic.
That's a huge thing.
But if that comes at the cost of like a mid-table finish in the Premier League, would you take that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think you do. 100%. Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, 100%. You made me really think about that then instead of just spewing out an opinion.
In the comments, I'm just checking.
Get involved on YouTube. Make sure you go and subscribe if you're there. We know plenty of you out there watching, getting involved in the comments as well. We just wanted to give a bit of love to one of the other Premier League teams.
They're doing fantastic. We're not bashing them whatsoever. We are showing absolute love to Bournemouth. It is a tremendous story. It's just very interesting to see what comes next because it's uncharted waters. This new territory for them, and it's new territory for all of us to see where this beautiful journey goes.
I do want to ask because we promised today's show like plenty of transfer talk. We had Ben Jacobs on, the Anthony Gordon of it all, the Barcelona of it all. But one story we did talk about that we didn't really get our own opinions on was Enzo Fernandez. So Enzo Fernandez wants out of Chelsea. He's had enough of the nonsense and the drop down the table, finishing 10th, not getting a European place. The huge bloated squads, the change of managers, all the mess that has happened at Chelsea recently, and I kind of sympathise with him to an extent on that. What I don't understand is that Chelsea are going to slap £120 million price tag on his head. They bought him for £105 million. Coming out of winning a World Cup, I really thought Enzo Fernandez, whilst the price tag felt high at that point, could be a real stalwart for Chelsea. And as Ben talked about earlier, he moved from a 6 to being much more of an 8, much more of a box-to-box guy. He's not a guy you're just playing purely in the pivot. He's not a guy that has that necessarily in his locker. But what I do know is from the beginning of March until now, for Chelsea to have got European football, right? They needed 6 points from their remaining 9 games. They end up getting 4. And we covered a bunch of these games on talkSPORT, and I watched a bunch of these games. And what I saw was an Enzo Fernandez who, in a 3-0 loss to Brighton, went absolutely missing. He made 4 passes in that game total, and only one of them was a forward pass. He had 6 duels in that game, and he lost 4 of them. Sunderland on the final day. Win that game, you get European football. Amazing considering how poor you've been all year. Fernandez goes completely missing again. He's only 25 years old. He's shown on his day he can be absolutely sensational. But who on earth in the world is paying £120 million for Enzo Fernandez if they've watched any of the football he's played in the last 6 to 12 months? It is astonishing to me.
I don't know who pays for it. I don't even if he wants to go to Real Madrid, I don't think they pay for it either because he kind of already played his hand.
Real Madrid need 6s as well. They don't need 8s. They don't need 10s. They're another team. I don't see the fit there. I don't see the fit there really. For City need an 8, but are they going to pay Chelsea £120 million for Enzo Fernandez? That'd be madness.
Enzo Maresca, those reports, I mean, it could be a good fit, but if you got 115 charges and whatever comes from that, who knows if that impacts his decision-making and City's decision-making. There's a lot to be unknown with Enzo. But he tipped his hand in the spring. The amount of time he spent in Madrid in between matches, it was very clear he seemed like a guy that was checked out, and the performance that you talked about showed it. It as did the performances of a lot of players on Chelsea. To be honest with you, it didn't look like a squad and a bunch of players that were really motivated to go out there and win Europa or compete in Europa or qualify for Europa or qualify for Conference League again. It looked like a squad that was ready for the season to be over with once they lost the FA Cup final.
It's just astonishing to me. Absolutely astonishing. We haven't talked about tickets. We were meant to do that here. I'm sorry. We'll do it tomorrow. That's fine.
We could talk about tickets tomorrow. I mean, they're always bashing Americans about tickets. And so
maybe they'll sell a couple of hundred more by then. If you haven't seen this, they have only sold, there are 50,000 empty seats right now at the Raymond James Stadium for England against New Zealand. And I just went out and had a look on my phone. The cheapest pair of tickets I can buy right now are $128 per ticket. Who's going to that? Who's going to watch England against... I mean, I love Chris Wood more than anyone else. I'm not paying $128 per person just to go and watch New Zealand play against England in a pre-World Cup friendly.
You don't want to see Alex Scott and the only chance he gets with England?
Doesn't this feel like kind of classic lower league kid for a quid night? This feels like you just put the dollars up for 20, 30 quid. You still know you're going to get people to buy the concessions and pay for parking and everything else. Just get in all the locals, get in all the people who are travelling, make it a big event, have a lot of fun with it. I just don't see how 50,000 empty seats at $128 is making anyone any money. Anyway,
it's going to be very hot too. Oh, it's going to be. And if there's one thing English people love complaining about, it's the weather. All 10,000 of them.
Save your $260 for a pair of people to go to that game and listen to it on talkSPORT. That's probably the best.
The company man over here. Company man.
Keep getting in touch with us on YouTube, in the chats. We'd love to hear from you on any of the topics we're covering in today's show. Coming up, we are going to be talking with Christina Unkel to get a little look at some clear and obvious. We've been building up to this World Cup. A few big question marks we've still not addressed over how it's going to be refereed. But up next, African footballers in the Premier League have given us so much joy over the years. Mo Salah, the latest. But is he the greatest African football in Premier League history? We're going to draft our top 10 here on the S Word. I'm Will Gavin, and it's all me.
Big name reaction from both sides of the pond. The S Word from talkSPORT. S-word's here. Just 2 hours of full-on football dialogue.
Every day,
talkSPORT presents
the S-word.
You're back with the S-word from talkSPORT and the talkSPORT S-word YouTube channel. And you can get some podcasts as well. Spotify, where else? Apple Podcasts, any RSS feed, all those good places. Okay, you carry on. I'm going to lie down.
Just, you see what's beautiful right here?
My words just completely stopped working.
Of a good uncle.
Sam's getting comfortable now.
I love it.
Yeah, here we go.
Follow us on X, follow us on Instagram. Shout out to everybody in the YouTube comments right now. Got a nice little audience building up today. Of course, if you want to join in, there's our WhatsApp channel, the WhatsApp phone number right there. You can call us, give us a phone call, shoot us a message. What have we thought? Because I promise you right now, I just saw our first clip from the show went out, and I already know that I'm going to get bashed again. But
we're heading to the pub after the show today for some team bonding and drinks, and let's say that the Master's going to need them after seeing the comments from remove the EPL clubs from the European competitions.
I just said from Conference League. I enjoy the Conference League.
A few of those comments on YouTube. Ollie gets in touch talking about the fact that Anthony Gordon agrees a 5-year deal with Barcelona. It's another way of them spinning that money out, was what Ben Jacobs talked about earlier. And Shivayan on this is on the actual S-word page itself, says, how can Barcelona afford Gordon and Alvarez? They got money, brother. That's not what we've been told, though, all year long. They had to redevelop the Camp Nou. They had a reduced capacity. It was going to cost them a huge amount of money against financial fair play. They were going to struggle to sign players. And yet now, Julián Alvarez is going to cost them 130 million euros. Anthony Gordon's going to cost them 70 million euros. Apparently they want Rashford. They want all three of them, apparently, and Rashford's going to be another 30 million on top. And they need a centre back. Like, it's an absolute. It's astonishing that they are able to do this. And Kip gets back in touch, our Crystal Palace fan, who is just on top of the world right now, as you deserve to be, Kip. We unsurprisingly, a Bournemouth fan talking about a Crystal Palace fan understands the Bournemouth situation. He says it's a juggle and a gamble, especially for a club like Bournemouth, even more so, he says, than a club like Palace. And I, during that section said I would not say that the Palace job is necessarily a bigger job. He says, look at Palace 13 years ago at liquidation, yet in the last 13 months have been the best 13 months Palace have ever had. Let's not put a ceiling on it. Let's not cap these teams. Bournemouth could win a cup competition in the next 2 years, and then they've not hit a ceiling. They're only gone up and up. So, Kip, I love the positivity on a Thursday afternoon. That's the kind of energy we need.
We're bringing the beam of positivity in the comments, aren't we? I love that.
Do. Oh, that wasn't the start of... okay.
No.
Right. What's our next topic? Oh, yeah, we're going to do the African draft. I've just lost it. I've entirely gone. Mo Salah is no longer a Premier League player, having left Liverpool this past Sunday. And with the conversation around what he was going to do next, and with the conversation around Liverpool today with Steve Nicol, we want to talk a little bit about African footballers in the Premier League who have brought us, Master, a huge amount of joy over the years.
Yes, I mean, it was my introduction to the league, seeing your own representation and entering in the 1998 World Cup, and wanted to follow a lot of these players that I was introduced to, the Drogbas, the Essiens, the JJ Okochas, the Yaya Torres, like that. That was the era in which I came up in. So, and seeing where it's at now, it's tremendous in terms of the growth and evolution of African footballers. It's the growth of AFCON, the growth of the developments of each country, the investment that's being poured in. And now you're seeing African players pretty much on every single squad, everywhere you look across Europe. So the growth has been tremendous over the last couple of decades, and we're here to celebrate it, aren't we?
Indeed. And this is where we are doing, and this is, our show is got for an American audience, for the American focus. So we are bringing a little bit of Americana to our soccer coverage. And we are going to be doing a draft. A top 10 African players in the Premier League, taking it in turns. And just to establish a couple of the rules here, to be defined as an African player in the Premier League, it's which nation you played for, not necessarily where you were born. For example, on that front, was born in France, N'Golo Kante, born to Malian parents, African immigrant, but chose to play for France. He'd probably be in my top 3, top 4 all time, but he doesn't count as an African player. He's a French player. That's just to give you a little establishment of where we are with this. And with that in mind, Who gets the first pick in the draft? Should it be the man of Eritrean heritage, second-generation immigrant, or should it be the colonizer sat next to him? I think probably you should get the number 1 overall pick.
It is nice to get my reparations today. With the first pick, I'm going to take Didier Drogba.
Oh, he's got it. See, I thought Mo Salah might be number 1 overall. I really thought that was going to be the case.
Drogba, as a kid, Drogba, I loved watching him, man. With Cote d'Ivoire, even the time when he was at Chelsea, as much as I hate to admit it, he could do it all. And he was a big game player. He showed up in big moments, obviously in the Champions League final, of course. There is a lot that I look up to in terms of what Drogba was able to accomplish. A late bloomer also in his career, found his way, just like the quintessential African story. And man, I every time I think about those moments of watching him play, it was why I fell in love with the game. So yeah. I'm going with Drogba first.
104 Premier League goals, 4-time Premier League champion, 4-time FA Cup winner, 3-time League Cup winner, Champions League winner. And for me, I tell you, he actually had him top of my list as well.
Yeah?
My favourite African footballer just to watch of all time. Because from my perspective, it just... Why the tension music? You're just so worried I'm going to say something offensive. You've laid tension music over the top. I don't think we needed that. I just... The way that he played centre forward, the way that he bullied players around him, the way that he held the ball up, but the grace he could play with as well. The great lone striker, so technical. A beautiful player to watch. I think a sensational choice. 2-time Golden Boot winner as well. So a sensational top pick as our favourite African player in Premier League history. It does leave me an absolute gimme at number 2 overall, of course. And I am going to put Mo Salah. Oh, sorry. First of all, just very quickly on Drogba as well, because I think this isn't often enough talked about. You mentioned about his work in the Côte d'Ivoire. As a player,
I'm glad you mentioned it.
His charity work there
100%.
Is absolutely unbelievable. As a man who came to the Premier League and obviously earned a huge amount of money, opened hospitals, opened childcare centres, has always gone back and given back to the African community. So
he put a halt to a civil war.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow. Yeah. Such a dramatic thing to say that it turned all the lights off in here. And we're back. We got some visitors in the other room. You're all good. Don't worry. It's fine. It's not like we're live or anything.
It made it very dramatic, though. I'm not gonna lie.
You put an end to a civil war. We don't talk about those things on talkSPORT. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes. So,
Didier Drogba, wonderful human being. How am I meant to recover from that? Mo Salah is the number 2 overall pick in our draft. And whilst we talk about 104 goals, 193 Premier League goals and 328 appearances, 94 assists on top of that. That's almost very, very close to a goal involvement for every single appearance he made in the Premier League. 2-time Premier League champion, won the Champions League and the FA Cup as well. 4-time Golden Boot winner, a record he shares all time with Thierry Henry as well. And on his day, just unstoppable. You can roll out all the stats you want, but you watched him play football and you felt that there was no way this man could be slowed down.
He was tremendous. There's nothing else to put about it. One of the greatest goal scorers in Premier League history. What he's done in the Premier League, it cannot be topped from an African footballer. Maybe I'm a bit more biased because, from Egypt's perspective, he still has never been able to win AFCON with them. So when the conversation becomes of the greatest African footballers of all time, I think there may be some others that are ahead of him. But what he did in the Premier League, what he did in Liverpool, they're going to build a statue for him for a reason. So, great pick. Great pick. I went a bit more emotional with my pick.
I had Didier Drogba on board overall as well. It's fine. Let's not stay too chalky over the coming picks. But This feels like a pivot point in the draft. Who are you taking number 3 overall?
Are we doing a snake? Or are you going next? Or?
No. Well, there's 2 people. There's no point in snaking. We'll just go back and forth, 1-on-1.
I was preparing a snake, in the quintessential.
Do you want me to tell you who I would have next and see if you agree?
I know. I'm gonna go.
Sorry, I'll stop trying to take his picks off him. I apologise. Put him in a museum or something.
I'm gonna go back to my childhood, and this is a lot of Chelsea players I'm picking right now. Michael Essien.
Wow, number 3 overall. I had him 5, just out of interest, but love it. Absolutely love Michael Essien. What a beast.
2005 season. 2-time Premier League champion. 168 appearances. What he did with Ghana, which again, as an American, maybe is a bit of a no-no for me to mention a Ghanaian, as of course, there's a couple battles that we had with them in the World Cup, no big deal, but, and of course what he did against Arsenal 2006, that curler, the 30-yarder, which again, a bit sacrilegious, but I cannot knock how tremendous of a talent Michael Essien was, and watching him as a kid, it inspired me in many ways. So I'm very happy that I was able to pick Drogba and Essien as my top two. That when you talk about the African
Chelsea fan to me, to be honest.
I don't know. I respect African footballers. How about that?
And from a golden era of box-to-box midfielders, right? Around that time, you go through the 90s and the noughties in the Premier League. Patrick Vieira, Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard, and Michael Essien was absolutely up there with those players on his day. Sensational. No problem with it whatsoever.
He was number 5. I'm curious who you're going to go with now.
It's left me with a tough choice at 4 overall. And I think some people won't be happy that I have gone one above the other. But at 4 overall, I am going to take the 3-time Premier League champion, Manchester City legend, Yaya Toure. At his absolute peak, just physically a man that could dominate anyone in any area of the pitch. Again, back in that box-to-box midfield role. Only one of 2 central midfielders in Premier League history to have a 20-goal season, him and Frank Lampard. And just to go from the Man City noisy neighbour era through to being the dominant force they are. If I think of the players that define that era, and I think of the Sergio Agueros of this world, and the Yaya Toure and the Kevin De Bruyne's and the David Silvas, Yaya Toure is absolutely in that conversation for the player that elevated them from, we're going to spend some money on Robinho, but you're still going to take the mick out of us and we're just going to be a money club, to being a proper elite force. Yaya Toure is up there for me.
Absolute legend. I was debating between him and Essien. I think, again, I went with my emotional childhood bias with Essien. So, tremendous pick. What are we at here? Pick
you got 5. You got 5. Halfway through the list.
Ooh, I think I'm going to go with someone a bit more modern with this one.
Mm-hmm.
And who I think you can make an argument that he is a top 3 African footballer of all time.
Wow.
Sadio Mane.
See, our top 5s are the same players, just in a different order.
Yeah.
Because Sadio Mane was my 4. So, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Sadio Mane, it's just an absolute dog. And he's still getting it done. Just won AFCON with Senegal. And they're going to be, in my opinion, the best team in Africa going into this World Cup. His longevity, his endurance, his ability, and he's been able to do it, yes, in the Premier League, obviously with Liverpool. And just crazy to think about that you had 2 of the greatest African footballers of all time at Liverpool at the same time, in Mo Salah and Sadio Mane. But just his tenacity, his demeanor, his ability to just find ways to score and find ways to get involved. He's done it on all levels. He's done it in different leagues. He's done it internationally. And you talk about another humanitarian as well. Sadio Mane checks off all the boxes for me. I got him.
I'd never have guessed he had more Premier League goals than Didier Drogba either.
It's crazy, right?
It's astonishing. Yeah. Absolutely astonishing.
But it just shows his longevity compared to Drogba, who obviously came in another league, and there was some questions whether he could, make it in the Premier League, and he ultimately obviously did. But Mane's just longevity is hard to top.
I might break from my board here.
Ooh.
I might at 6. I might switch it. I might 6 or 7, whatever I am. 6 now. I might switch up because I had my list and I had my order, but I kind of want to jump a guy up. I'm going to move somebody up only from 7 to 6, but just probably the player who really introduced the greatness of African football to me outside of George Weah had to be.
You're going to take my pick.
The man so nice, they named him twice. Bolton Wanderers legend, Nigeria legend, JJ Okocha is going to come in at 6 on this list. Fantastic noises there. Arrived on a free transfer from PSG in 2002. And the reason that I've moved him above my other players, the other guy has got more medals and more goals and more appearances, but JJ Okocha was just joy incarnate on the field. The rainbow flicks, the stepovers, the samba flair he brought to, in theory, Sam Allardyce's very rigid Bolton team. And you see him in there when they had Djorkaeff and when they had just that bizarre Bolton side that became just a group of cult heroes. So number 6 on my list, or our collective list, JJ Okocha. Who you got 7? Come on, Master.
I was hoping to go with him. You know what?
Go Homer.
I am going to go Homer.
Here we go.
I'm going with an invincible. I'm going defensive.
Wow, this is way higher than I had him on my list.
Colo Torre. I mean, you talk about it, the absolute rock and heartbeat and what he was able to...
Colo Torre, yeah. You can't not do it. You can't not do it. I'm sorry. If both get mentioned in the same conversation, you've got to do it.
I mean, what he did at Arsenal, winning it again at City. I mean, he's made the most appearances of any African defender with 353, two-time Premier League champion, another Cote d'Ivoire legend, an invincible himself. What he was able to do to establish the physicality and the definition of a proper African defender, Colo Torre, absolutely.
His longevity was so long I'd forgotten he was there as far back as the Invincibles. And when you started talking about an African player on the Invincibles, I thought you were talking about Laurent. And don't get me wrong, I had him in my top 20, but I was like, wow, that's high. I love it.
Is that better?
Colo Torre is a great.
Did you miss somebody on your big board? Is that?
Yeah. No, he's on my big board.
Do you have the San Francisco 49ers big board here?
Shots fired. Absolute shots fired. Okay, I'm in at 8. I'm going to take Riyad Mahrez. 82 goals. Won it with Leicester. What a performer he was for them. Then went and won it 4 times out of 5 years with Man City. And, yes, as a guy in that Man City side who's rotational, but he scored so many important goals. Unbelievable first touch. And how important he was to that Leicester team that went and won it is the 5,000 to 1 shot is massive. Riyad Mahrez in at 8. Who you got at 9? Go Homer again. Back-to-back Homer. Depends which one, though. I've got 2. My top 10 is fleshed out by 2 Arsenal players at this point.
Who's the other one besides Laurent?
Oh, no, he's not in my top 10.
Do you have 2 other Arsenals?
I have 2 other Arsenal players in my top 10. Oh, God, now I'm worried that I've missed somebody really obvious or something. Come on, who you got?
I got to show love to defenders once again.
Okay.
And I'm going Lucas Radebe. I mentioned him.
Yeah, I love it. I nearly put Yakubu on my list.
Oh, okay.
That era of that. I gave JJ Okocha some love. Yakubu, wonderful.
Yeah,
and Lucas Radebe, just a sensational player.
The Chief, of course, what he did at Leeds, coming in, the South African, 197 appearances. He's viewed as a cult hero for Leeds. Once considered by Nelson Mandela as his hero. It just overcame so many injuries to become an icon at Leeds, and just a time when we saw a couple of African players at Leeds helping them get to the Champions League semifinals. He again, I don't want this to be so attacking. I want to make sure the defenders get some love too, because there's just so much talent across Africa that I got to show love to the OG.
Okay, I've got 3 players to pick from at 10.
Okay,
they're all Arsenal players.
I can't believe it. Okay, talk to me.
Am I going with Gabon's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang? Am I going with Togo's Emmanuel Adebayor? Or am I going with Nigeria's Nwankwo Kanu?
Ooh. Kanu is a big reason why a lot of African players. Mm-hmm. You know what, Kanu's
the history guy, right? He's the influencer.
Kanu should have been on the list.
He's the guy.
Yeah, I want to show love to OG Radebe, but
I think Aubameyang has the highest high, but a shorter period of time. I'm leaning towards Adebayor, though. 97 goals in the Premier League, did it for 2 clubs, PFA Team of the Year, Player African Footballer of the Year as well.
Adebayor, in terms of statistics, I think you can give him the edge. But Kanu's influence in terms of the reason why a lot of Africans are Arsenal fans and the influence that he had on that, you can't go wrong. I can understand going Adebayor, though. I can.
No, do you know what? I'm doing it. Let's do Kanu. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang misses out. That's going to be the headline. Emmanuel Adebayor misses out. Let's do it. Kanu gets in there as number 10, and that's our top 10 list of African footballers in Premier League history.
That was fun.
Just to go through the list again. Nigeria's Nwankwo Kanu at 10. Lucas Radebe at 9. Riyad Mahrez at 8. Colo Torre of Cote d'Ivoire at 7. JJ Okocha, Nigeria at 6. Sadio Mane at 5. Yaya Toure at 4. Michael Essien at 3, and Mo Salah only in the number 2 because we both agreed that Didier Drogba is the number one African player in Premier League history. Mo Salah did so much, such a wonderful career, and yet you couldn't be out Didier Drogba in our hearts.
It's emotional. We're tapping into our nostalgia, and rightfully so.
We'll have some more fun with some stuff like this, I'm sure, over the weeks here on the S Word. Keep checking out the YouTube channel and everywhere else. But we finish things off with Christina Unkel joining us for some Clear and Obvious.
From the touchline to the terraces, talkSPORT presents the S Word. The show for people who love football in North America. And I mean the proper kind, where you only use your feet. The S Word from talkSPORT.
You're back with the S Word on talkSPORT. Finale of the show. Now look, tomorrow, Champions League final to preview. Master is feeling quite calm, I feel, at the moment.
I am.
We're doing a work night out after this. We're 4 weeks into this new adventure. We love that you've been involved. We're loving loads of action on the chat today. Get involved in those chat rooms from the talkSPORT stream or the S Word stream. There are two streams going on, one on our personal channel, and we'd love if you'd head over to that channel, give us a subscribe, check out some of the other content there. Something we're trying to grow, something we're trying to make big, and so your love will help us do that and hopefully keep this show going long beyond the World Cup. But right now we're going 5 days a week, 7 days a week during the World Cup. Big show for you. Just a couple of those YouTube comments before we get to Christina Unkel. Benny gets in touch and says Essien over Yaya. That's what happened in the end.
It did.
Because you got the number one over pick. I had Yaya over Michael Essien on my personal list. So there you go. We will put that list on our X channel, as you can see there, and on Instagram as well. We'll make a nice graphic for it and everything else. And I wanted to mention, Granite State of Mind got in touch, said, I went to my first Cherries match in 1971, and I would take a drop in league performance at the expense of a European trophy lifting tour. However, as a literal Big Six side, we won't suffer like the others have.
Those words.
I bumbled that. That was really funny, and I apologise for bumbling it. And I'd also like to give a shout out to Kip, who said, first time here, loving the show, won't be my last. But also, I saw the name Kip. I made an assumption. Kip is of the female persuasion, and I've been saying he or show, so I apologise. Women can enjoy football too.
Of course.
That is fine. That's what she said in the comments. Of course. We welcome all here, and we've got, we do women's football, we cover that. It's just, I wanted to apologise. I'll stop digging the hole for myself now.
We probably talk about women's sports more than anybody else on this network.
I will put the shovel down, and I will continue with the show.
Yes.
Let's get Christina Unkel.
Thank you, Kip.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Love that you're going to be back as well. Let's do Clear and Obvious though. Have you sorted out like some nice music for Clear and Obvious yet, or a stab? Come on, Sam. Yeah. This is poor. It's her third appearance on the show. She's part of the show at this point.
Yes.
You gotta
here for the World Cup.
Come on, Sam. What are you doing?
Yeah,
welcome song. Let's go. Let's get on him.
She needs entrance music. She needs a big pop.
Yes.
We need something like, come on. Christina, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful. And let's clap for
of course, as always. Great to have you on. Thankfully, no controversial Arsenal moments that happened this time that will break my heart. But let's talk about this World Cup, because there's a lot of fascination. Particularly, let's talk about the technology of this World Cup, because yes, we've seen in the last couple tournaments, international tournaments, the usage of a chip inside the ball that can help officials out. But this one, it sounds like there's been a bit of an enhancement, and they're kind of evolving where this goes. What can we expect when we're looking at this World Cup, the Triunda ball, and how that can help officiate matches and some tight decisions?
Yeah, so that microchip, which it's like connected ball technology, I think is the official definition of it, right? And it was introduced in the 2022 World Cup. We've seen it in the men's Euros in Berlin, and now we have it here for the 2026. Just one little interesting, and this is just for anyone who wants to dork out with me on the technology side of it, but previously the technology was actually inserted in the center of the ball. Now it's going to be inserted on a side panel. I don't know. I didn't get that kind of STEM background. I got more of my legal degree, but apparently it's supposed to make it better according to FIFA, or according to Adidas, who's the ball provider. But all of that said, to kind of drum it down and to add one more technical side of it, it literally tracks like 500 times per second on that touch and that calibration. So everyone's like, why do we need this? Well, I can tell you it helps on issues with regard to handball offenses. Did it or did it not hit somebody's hand? Once you have that technology in it, not only do you have the cameras that can sometimes still create doubt because it's a one frame per second, that technology allows you to know whether or not there was actual contact that would have changed and actually impacted that ball. So it lets you know whether it's a handball or not. It helps with offside, right? Offside is calculated when the ball is first touched, not when after it's released, but when it's first touched and impacted. So you can track effectively the trajectory of the ball when it was first kicked, and that helps set the kick point when we talk about semi-automated offside technology with VAR and being able to set those lines. And like I said, football right now is not even modern 2.0. It's like 10.0 at this moment with all of this technology, but it really is supposed to help with those situations on offside, handball offenses, and truly understanding, was there a touch on the ball before there might have been impact on a player to determine whether or not that could be, most likely in the situations we talk about, penalty or no penalty.
With this kind of technology being used for international tournaments, and once again here in this World Cup this summer, is it something maybe we see down the road with domestic leagues? How hard would this be to implement for, say, the Premier League or La Liga or Bundesliga in the future?
Yeah, I mean, top Premier League, you got Serie A, Bundesliga. There's money and resources that could pay for it, right? Because you're talking about leagues that are well funded. You're talking about leagues with promotion relegation, with millions, if not $1 billion on the line. So it could be implemented as just striking another check, right? And so it comes down to where Premier League, we've seen there's been a slower hesitation to add technology into the game, right? They didn't immediately include VAR, right? The semi-automated offside technology took a while. There's conversation previously for, can you use iPhone cameras to help offset the cost? This technology, it's not as simple as just throwing up a camera and just saying, hey, let's do it, right? You have to sync it. You have to ensure that all 20 are, protected, the circuit's closed so no one can mess with it. There has to be calibration with it. So adding another form of that technology to it does help. Let me clarify that. It's just a matter of, is it worth potentially millions of dollars of investing in each of the balls? It's kind of weird to think of, right? Back in the day, you pumped up a ball. Now you also pump up a ball and you have to charge a ball. So none of those balls are cheap in any way, shape, or form. So it really just comes out to striking a check. I don't see it happening, to be quite honest, in some of these leagues, just because of their hesitation with the previous technology and them saying, does the money outweigh, is it worth the reward that they're going to get from this?
I think that'll forever be the question, though, right? Because the fact is the joy of football, the reason we love it so much, it's the world sport. It's a sport that you can go play on. You just need a flattish surface and a roundish object and you can go and play football, right? So I find it odd when, say, take the EFL playoffs recently. We get to the League One final, big decision in the first half where there's a push in the back from the striker as he's going through to score an equalising goal for Stockport. And having watched that league all season and had no VAR and anything else, it's like, well, it's a Wembley showcase. It's a big moment. So we'll invest in the technology and inject it in there. Do you see a world where the technology gets to a point where it does get cheaper, where it does become something where IFAB try and introduce it and local PGMOL or whoever it is try and introduce it all the way down the tiers, try and make it something that is much more universally available?
It is. It's already been implemented for a couple of years to this point. They call it VAR Lite. It's gone through a couple of naming things. I kind of like VAR.
I'm not
Lite.
sure. I'm not sure. I love VAR Lite. It does make me think. It does make me think it's a diet soda.
It's like 0-calorie VAR, right? Like,
VAR
you're
zero.
Be drinking carbs on this one. There is still a cost to it, right? Because everyone just looks at the technology. Yes, okay, that's great, but then you have the video operators that come with it, right? You still have, do you have a referee? And so VAR Lite doesn't have a VAR in the booth. What it basically is just the cameras, basically access to a video screen. So there could be certain situations in the referee themselves. And it's been implemented in the youth FIFA World Cups. I know we have implemented it here in some demonstrations with USL and MLS Pro stateside. To experiment and see if this works from the cost factor. I know there's, the league that I run and manage, a professional women's soccer team, and, there's been conversations about using it there as well, too, because you don't have to implement in a full system. That's why it's light. I guess it's less money. But at the same time, then you have to have the referees trained on it, properly trained. And at the end of the day, they have to have enough confidence. And now you're talking about officials that are still gaining experience to get to the top are now being introduced with, hey, now I get access to a monitor. And you would think it would be easier, but mentally we already see what it is when you have a referee in the VAR booth who is of equal level as their peer trying to advise them. Now you're introducing technology to an up-and-coming referee who's already, working through that confidence level. So the costs are coming down. I do think it will eventually trickle in, and just the next version of referees. And, you can referee until you're in your 40s, right? A lot of the UEFA Champions League final referees are 45, 46, 47 years old. As long as you can still sprint, right? That's usually what goes on a referee first is the soft tissues, your hammies. But, there's just going to be a whole new crop of referees that they're training right now who are in their, teens, early 20s that are just going to be very familiar with this, where I would argue myself and the old crop were still like little old people being like, what is this? And what's coding and all of that good stuff.
I mean, I'm sure you could still give it a go, right? No? Could you still?
I tried to after I had my little one. Man, those that calf and the hamstring went a couple of times. So, I kept arguing. I didn't keep getting older. Everyone got younger, and the FIFA fitness standards for the 40-meter sprint dropped from 6 seconds flat to 5.8 to 5.6, and the repeated sprints. So, the game's gotten a lot faster as well too. So, I could. if it was like a fun TST event or something and I was standing in the middle of the field and just manhandling people, then yeah.
we still believe in you, Christina.
Yeah,
we
do.
still love
Give it
to
a
see
go.
you out there.
We'll see you out there.
Instead, we'll enjoy you on our screens here on talkSPORT and on TV screens throughout the World Cup. Christina Unkel, brilliant stuff. With us on Clear and Obvious.
We'll have a song next time. I promise.
Sure, yeah, you'll have a song.
Come on, Sam.
Come on, Sam.
Come on,
Pressure's
Sam.
on.
Kip,
Sam.
we're excited to have you on the show again, listening as well. So go on. Well done, Kip.
Brilliant stuff. Christina
Thanks so
Unkel
much.
joining the show and wrapping up a brilliant episode of the S Word, even if, we do say so ourselves. We've had so much contact and we appreciate everyone getting in touch with us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all those places at talkSPORT S Word. We'll be back tomorrow as we look forward to the Champions League final.
We're signing off on time for once. It's a good omen. It's a good omen for us.
Hit the break.
Come on.
Go on.
S Word with Will Gavin and Master Tesfacion from talkSPORT.